And now. Well, welcome everybody. This is episode 3 of the Remote Learning Rundown, and I'm Scott Bramley, and I'm here with a guest panel of ETHS staff members who are going to share some of their thoughts and experiences and tips for staff well-being. That is the focus for this week's episode. So they're going to introduce themselves to you, and then we're going to go through their tips.
Hi, I'm Christy Lambropoulos. I'm the school psychologist for the incoming class of 2024.
Hi, I'm Amber Greer, school counselor for class 2020 and 2022.
Hi, everybody. I'm Brian Murphy. I teach strength and conditioning and DLP, and this upcoming year, healthy lifestyles in the PE Wellness and Driver's Ed department.
Hi everyone, Ty Kinsey, Associate Principal for Student Services.
All right, thank you everybody. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all follow along, and this is the best part, when everybody gets to see behind the scenes of how this all works. So just to start us off, a couple of our guests will be on the screen with me here at the beginning, and then we'll transition to speaker view for their tips. I just wanted to start us off by framing why this is the focus this week. You may have seen earlier last week, a staff wellness well-being survey was sent out to everybody at eTown, and really just trying to take stock in the challenges that we're all facing and trying to help each other through this difficult time. Everyone's been doing amazing things, but anything and everything that we're doing is amazing. And so I don't want to lose sight of that. I saw something posted online. I was sharing with people on the panel here that I really only do one form of social media, LinkedIn, and something was posted on LinkedIn around, the different circumstances that we're all in, and we don't all have the same access to information, materials, resources, energy, whatever it might be at this time. And so being comfortable with recognizing that what we're doing is important and it is our best, and we're all amazing for doing it. So one of the challenges during this time is how we compare ourselves to others. And so just being true to yourself and what you're doing and how you're showing up for yourself, your family, and for your students is super important. So that was the impetus for why we wanted to look at staff well-being this week. So again, they've already introduced themselves, but our guests today, Christy, Amber, Brian, and Taya, and I'm going to pose some questions to them about staff well-being, and we're going to do a little bit of a round-robin panel offering those tips, and then we'll close out with some resources today. So just to frame our conversation, I found this article on Edutopia. You certainly, don't need to read that publication. I'm not endorsing it in any way. But this did come up in my inbox, and I thought it was really interesting how we're prioritizing self-care and maybe how people aren't doing that, and how we can try to help each other to do that. And these were the 3 dimensions that really came up. Obviously our physical care, mental care, and then our social care and well-being, looking at the whole body and a more holistic approach to wellness. And so that was a little bit of why I invited the guests that I did today from their different perspectives to really look at the whole being. And so this slide deck will be available. I'm going to post the actual slide deck with the episode this time on my website so that you can look at all the resources and click and access all those links. So we're going to go ahead and get started with Christy. And I'm going to pop out of this and switch to speaker view. And then when Christy introduces herself, we'll be able to see her on the screen.
Hey everyone, it's Christy, and I have Lucy here, who just smashed her finger in a laptop computer. So hopefully she's feeling better now. But some things I've been doing for self-care is I've been personally using the app Insight Timer, which I have found to be my favorite, just because I can search exactly what I'm looking for based on time. If I'm only wanting like a minute meditation, or if I'm needing help, sleeping, they have music for that, or even just like someone's voice telling a story, or doing a guided meditation for that. Something else I've been doing for self-care is just trying to not take everything too seriously. I feel like with the news and the TV that's constantly on, everything can be so heavy and really bring us down. And so as you can see, I mean, I've dyed my hair pink. I'm playing with a baby nonstop. I'm really just doing whatever I can and trying to see it as a blessing that I am able to be in my home. I'm able to be with my baby every day. I'm able to have pink hair. I never thought I would. So just trying not to take everything too seriously, even though everything that's going on is really heavy right now. And then something that I wanted to mention that you mentioned, Scott, was the comparison of ourselves to others. Some things that I've heard some colleagues say recently is that, you know, they feel like a bad professional, they feel like a bad parent, they feel like they're doing everything badly at the same time, that they can't do anything to the full extent that they're wanting to right now. And so just to be mindful that you really can only do what you can with what you've got right now. And so for myself, you know, the easiest thing for me to focus on is I'm at home with my daughter. And so that has been a priority and I'm doing the best I can with her. But as we continue to reach out to students, just knowing that just because, you know, students aren't responding back, you know, as much as we would like for them to, that hopefully they're still seeing the emails and that we're still doing the work by reaching out and showing we still care.
Thank you so much, Christy. Real quick question. What do you got on the background there? What show is that? What are you?
This is Lulu Kids on Netflix. It's the favorite this week.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Appreciate you coming on, and I think and for Lucy's guest appearance, thank you so much.
No problem.
Certainly the times that we're in, and this, you know, I think I appreciate your just willingness to open up and take some time out to be with us today. So
Yeah, thanks for having me.
we're gonna kick it over to Amber here, and Amber, if you introduce yourself to everybody, you should show up.
Sure. Amber Greer, school counselor. Some of the conversations that I've had with colleagues have been around food. And obviously when we're stressed, we want to run to those salty and sugary snacks that temporarily, right, make us feel better. Ooh, comforting, right? And it's during times like these where we really have to look at sugar consumption. I'll just focus on sugar for a moment. And so people seem to be experiencing the range, right, of behaviors in that the blue mood food cycle can start, right, where you start feeling a little down and then before you know it, that whole bag of chips is gone, or you have no appetite, to everything in between, right? And so when we talk about food and its connection to our mental wellness, you know, while our brain needs sugar, we don't need sugar to fuel it. And so as we eat more and more sugar, it increases brain fog, right? It causes us to have trouble concentrating at times. It can increase anxiety and depression. And we're already trying to navigate this abrupt change, right, that we have experienced. And so one of the things that I've been doing is funny. I was at Costco last Thursday. It's been my first Costco run since we've been out, right? I have frozen cherries, frozen mango, frozen berries, and I do buy fresh fruit, but of course buying fresh means you have to go to the market more. And I've been trying to limit going to the grocery store. So I've been getting some of that stuff from Costco. But replacing refined sugary snacks with some low glycemic fruit, you know, either in a smoothie or let the fruit thaw. You know, like cherries, apples, grapes, berries, apricots, pears, things like that. There's like a really good tin, like grapefruit as well, that can really just satisfy that sugar craving that you may have. But of course, you still don't want to, you know, overdo it on natural sugar, but it's definitely better than the refined. And it can just, you can have a dessert with a bowl of strawberries with a little bit of cocoa powder sprinkled over it, as opposed to that Ben & Jerry's Cherry Garcia that I did get a couple of weeks ago that gave me a headache because it was just too much, right? So I just wanted to share on the food piece. It's really critical during times of stress to find ways to push more fruit and vegetables into and onto your plate, into your diet and onto your plate. And so I've had to really focus on that, because there have been days where I haven't wanted to eat at all. I just haven't been hungry, and that isn't good either. And then I find myself having headaches, and that kind of thing. And then also just making sure we're drinking plenty of water, right? So we're staying hydrated. But yeah, making sure that we have some healthy food options to keep us alert, so that we can pivot, right, as needed.
Thank you so much, Amber. So as you were talking, first of all, some pro tips there, shopping, the freezing of fruits, that's amazing. And, as somebody, be a little bit personally vulnerable here, I have the sugar, I have diabetes. And, so I think that's just such an important thing, that, times like this, it's really challenging to make good choices, and not everybody can. And so, some of the things that you talked about, like, buying, frozen fruit to stock well, keep up, and also satisfy some cravings. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate you bringing the food piece into this.
Sure.
So we're going to transition over to Brian in a moment here, and all my guests are sticking around because I'm gonna turn to them right at the end and before we close for any final thoughts. So Brian, if you introduce yourself, say hello, then we'll move over to you.
All right, hello again, everybody. This is Brian Murphy from the PE Wellness and Driver's Ed Department. Amber, that's a great point on the food. One that I was going to touch on. It's really hard, to be walking distance from your kitchen all day, because, the tendency is, even when you're not hungry, you're in that room. So that's a challenge that we've really got to be aware of. And I wrote down a couple of things that have worked for us. A little bit about me. I've got a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And my wife's a nurse practitioner. So she's out testing people for COVID, and she's working more, than she's ever worked. So we are, I feel funny about giving tips because I feel like I'm going crazy. But some things that have helped for us, especially for anyone on our staff that has kids that they're also responsible for teaching during this time, is to try and set up some sort of routine, so that you have an idea when you are getting out of bed in the morning, what you're going to try to achieve for that day. I think that's something that you always do under normal circumstances. It's not really good to wake up and, ask yourself, what am I going to do today? So if you've already put thought into it and made sort of a plan of how you're going to go about attacking it, then it can help you to kind of stay structured throughout the course of the day. The diet piece we already touched on. I think a key, connection between mental and physical wellness is exercising, and that's hard. And there's a built-in excuse right now to not get your exercise in because no one's going to train us and we don't have anywhere to go. So, like Christy said about comparing ourselves to other people, exercise, I think, is okay to look a little different right now, right? You might be somebody that likes to go to CrossFit. Maybe now it's a 40-minute walk with your kids, just to get some sunlight. So working that into your daily routine is, obviously in my department, and I think everybody understands that the physical and the mental wellness component are connected. So whatever way that you can get it in, and then not feeling bad about it if it's not as hard, like as you used to be able to go, because you will be able to get back there. One thing we're trying to do here is pick something that you can try and get better at. So like in my family, my role is not to cook, but my role has changed. Like I'm a stay-at-home dad now. So she can't go work 10 hours a day and then come home and make me dinner. That's not right, and it ain't gonna fly anyways if I thought it was right. So I've been trying to get better at grilling. It's just a small thing, but it's like something that I can research and try to be better at, and it stimulates my mind. I know Connect Emotionally was on your PowerPoint that you just showed, that first slide, Scott, and I was going to talk about that too. It's a great time to call and connect with old friends that you haven't talked to in a long time, because they're doing the same thing you are. And sometimes it's just awkward to make a call, but it always feels good if you do. And usually they're happy to hear from you. And then, connected to diet, this is my last one. I would say to be weary of our vices, which can be food. But like if your routine is, to have a glass of wine or two after work on Friday to unwind from a tough week, make sure that that's not Tuesday at 2 and then Wednesday again at 5, and and so on and so forth. Like, be aware of where you can slide and guard against that slide.
Thank you so much, Brian. I can't thank you to you and your wife and your family. These are very challenging times, and appreciate everything that your family's sacrificing. I think a lot of people are finding themselves in similar situations, right, where they have this new normal, and how do I figure it out? And so some of your tips are really resonating in terms of having a plan, trying to figure out what your day looks like, trying not to limit routines that you normally would have had. They just look a little bit differently now, so you don't need to abandon routine necessarily, but it might shift a little bit. So really appreciate that, and the moderation tip there. So
yeah,
thank you for that.
Alcohol sales are at an all-time high.
Right. So thank you so much, Brian, and we're going to kick over to Taya real quick here, and please stick around, Brian.
Hello again. So just to piggyback on a lot of what has already been shared, I think that building resilience has been a theme both in our household and in lots of the conversations that I've been having with staff and with families. And that's not because I have it all figured out. And I think that's part of the resilience piece for me. As a little joke, wearing a hat today. I've been wearing a hat a bit along the way, and I was in a meeting earlier today where my boss said, "Why are you rocking the hat, Taya?" I said, "Why are you rocking the hat?" But that's part of our humanity, right? That just like when we've been talking a lot, like I feel like there's so much COVID language, right? There's like that we're pivoting all the time, and that we're supposed to have grace and compassion, but it's really hard to do for ourselves sometimes. We're asking everybody to do it for others, but it's really hard to do for ourselves sometimes. And so when we're thinking about that resilience, and we're thinking, everybody's talking about mindfulness, we've been talking a lot, even in our own family, about, so what does that mean? How are you being mindful about even being forgiving about the fact that, yep, I'm rocking the hat today, and that's okay. That's my humanity. Like Chrissy was saying, everybody's been talking about, like, doesn't mean we all have it right. And so part of the tip I would say is going back to the food references, that we make things in bite-sized pieces, whether it's literally food or if it's figuratively what it is that we're working on trying to do, whether that's around setting the boundaries. I know for me, I've been trying to like break things up more, and that doesn't always work because I might be going from one Zoom to the next, and I don't. So my goal is much bigger of, I want to insert breaks. I want to do these things. And when it doesn't work, I need to remember, oh, this is bite size, right? I may not have made this work today, but I'm going to try it tomorrow, because I think as humans, we tend to go, oh, this is how I'm going to do all my self-care. And then that doesn't work perfectly. And then we say, forget about it. Let me just fall into my patterns that aren't really working for me. So I've been trying to be really mindful of that and forgiving of myself when that's not perfect. I would also say, in terms of leaning on those social connections, I've been really trying to be mindful about who do I need to reach out to hold me accountable. And that means like loving support and accountability. I've been trying to do it for others too. But I was actually sharing the other day in a meeting about the fact that my back was tweaking, and it doesn't usually tweak. And it's because I haven't been paying attention to my ergo, and I've been in all different spots in the house trying to find some privacy and some quiet in all of these Zoom meetings. And a staff member reached out and texted me later and said, Ty, remember, sometimes you hold things in your body with the level of stress that we have, that it may not just be about your chair. And so it was great to have, like, even unsolicited, like, kind of holding me accountable, like check in with my body and what's going on. So I'm seeking that out more. Taking care of others, I think it's really important, that social connection, because that can make us feel good, but it's also equally important. I love the Evan Strong theme, and the Evan Strong theme also has to be about how are we asking for help? Because if we're telling students to do this all the time, we have to do the same thing. So I've been trying to do better at reaching out to folks to say, hey, I need to talk this through, or I need a thought partner on this, or because we're flipping all of our lives upside down all the time. So I think those are a few of those pieces. I think we've alluded to, like, the lack of control that we all really have. We don't know really what a couple weeks from now are going to look like. We don't know what a few months from now exactly really is going to look like. But the more that we think about the things we can control and let go of the things we can't, and then laugh at ourselves sometimes when we think we can control things we can't, and just to find the humor and the joy in those pieces. But I think kind of going back to those themes of how can we make sure we're being forgiving and not so judging of ourselves, because we're probably going to be kinder to other people when we're kinder to ourselves, and really thinking about how we're being responsive to ourselves, and thinking bite-sized pieces of everything we're trying, not all or nothing, because then we really fall into the negative patterns. So those are some things that have worked for me.
Thank you so much, Ty. I think as you were talking, your references to Evan Strong really struck me in how we define what it means to be strong, especially in times like this, and recognizing that the things that you were talking about and everybody else on the panel has mentioned, those are all ways of being strong, but being okay with recognizing that, how I show up today is how I'm being strong. So giving ourselves some grace as well as others. So thank you so much for that, Taya. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here, and just show a couple slides that I want to get to before we wrap up, and just some resources that we have. So if you haven't already visited the ETHS's coronavirus page, it's just a screenshot here of that page, but as soon as you log on to our homepage, you'll see this banner, and you can click on it and find resources. There are several resources here for just about coronavirus in general, but then also about emotional well-being as we're all dealing with the challenges that we're facing. Again, here are some additional resources that Taya provided. And Taya, do you want to just speak really quickly about anything on here or where these came from?
Yeah, so these are, I think, a smattering of pieces that apply to both educators as well as kind of anyone. I know for me, one thing I've been exploring more and more is actually doing mindfulness, and that those bite-sized pieces means doing a breathing technique and putting it in my calendar even for 2 minutes between one Zoom meeting to the next. So for me, that's been an important piece, and that's where I've done a little bit more training. I have a love-hate relationship with mindfulness and yoga and meditation. So some of these are coming from that. We have a lot of resources on the COVID page on the Navigating Emotional Landscape as well that are really applicable. And a whole bunch of staff in student services have been awesome about putting some of those together. They're applicable to students, but they're all applicable to us too. So there's lots of additional resources on the Navigating Emotional Landscape.
Thank you so much, Taya. Going to move a couple of the things that came out today that I think might be helpful for folks is this just came out. Thank you to Araceli Conchola for sharing this with staff from our partners at Alyssa's Mission. This is a virtual teacher support group, so this might be a little more specific to teachers, but you can register. There's the flyer here. And as I said, all these resources will be accessible afterward as I upload the slide deck here with the hyperlinks. So if you're looking for a way to connect with area teachers for well-being, mindfulness, support, emotional encouragement, this is another opportunity that is available. And then you may have seen the email today as well from Toya Campbell about our dance parties on Fridays. That is going to continue. And so I wasn't able to join the last one. And so I am committing to being at the next one on Friday between noon and 1. I probably won't dance because of some physical limitations, but at least I can move my arms a little bit and enjoy in the spirit. And I think one of the key things that Toya mentioned was that even if you can't dance, even if you don't feel comfortable with that, just your presence is so appreciated by everybody. To see each other and just to connect, I think is what this is all about. And the dancing is just a bonus. And then again, as we've been talking about well-being, one of the resources we do have available to all employees is our employee assistance program. And again, the number is there, but if you need any help with this, please speak to your immediate supervisor who can connect you and talk you through the process a little bit. But the important thing here is just if you need help, we all want to be supportive and we're all available to help you. And so you don't need to do or go through anything alone. We are a family at ETHS, and we want to continue to be ever strong by supporting each other. And then I'm going to close out here with our last slide, and then I'll bring the panel all back together on the Zoom. But Taya had shared this with her staff a while back and with the management team and leadership team, and asked me to share this today as well. And so Taya, you want to cue this up real quick of why you wanted to share this as part of our staff well-being?
Yeah, so Quaker Collins is an ETHS grad, 2015, and has come back to ETHS, continues to give to us in many ways, Poetry Week, other things. And this song is applicable, I think can touch us in many ways, but your song is really about it's gonna get better. And so it's not invalidating that this isn't difficult, it is. And the song obviously wasn't written for coronavirus, but it's so applicable because we do have to validate the hardships we're going through, and we have to give each other and remind each other of that hope. It's going to get better.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Taya. It reminds me of the power of music, right? And art and all forms of art and expression that people are longing for so much right now. So again, it wasn't written for this specific purpose, but when something touches your heart and your mind and your soul, it resonates and transcends. And so I'm going to play just a real quick snippet of this, and then I'm going to invite the whole panel to come back on. Thank you so much for sharing that, Taya, and always nice when we can celebrate one of our alums. So that song is available on SoundCloud. That's where I grabbed it from. So feel free to check out that and other works there. Just a real quick preview for next time. Before we wrap up, the next episode next week will be a Q&A. I don't have my guest confirmed, so I'm not going to state with whom I'm hoping to get this guest, but once I get it confirmed, I'll put it out there because I'm actually going to put out a request for any questions that staff would like me and some other folks to answer. And so might be a little more focused on the classroom pieces with remote learning ending for the school year and looking forward to the fall, but be looking on the lookout for a Google form to solicit questions that we can answer quote unquote live on the air with some pre-knowledge of what the questions are. So that'll be next week's episode. And before we wrap up here, I'm going to bring the panel all back together and see if there's anything, any final thoughts or any lasting words that we want to offer before we wrap. And there's no pressure to do so. I didn't prep anybody for this. So, but if there's anything that came up or anything you want to reiterate or anything you'd like to share before we wrap up, please, you're more than welcome to do so.
I'd like to share something briefly. There's an African proverb which says, drop by drop, the ocean is filled. And I share that just to say, let's just take it one step at a time, one moment at a time, one day at a time. Let's give ourselves a break. Let's give others a break, right? Let's be patient, and we'll get where we need to go.
I'll piggyback on the concept of how are we being strong. And Amber, that's a perfect example of part of our strength is that faith and that hope and that knowledge of, right, step by step. And I'd like to add that, you know, Scott, you mentioned that theme that was coming through from all of us around strength, and being Evan strong really does mean being able to reach out and ask for help, but it also just means being vulnerable and our being human and the importance of that. And that's actually the greatest sign of strength.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to close this off with this one final thought that came up for me as I was listening to all of you and reading some posts in preparation and just kind of getting my mind around well-being. I think this came up in many different ways, but if you think about how much sleep, good eating habits, and exercise all come together to not only promote wellness, but fuel ourselves so that we can be present for whatever challenges we're facing. But I think the key here is that you're also setting up some time not only to support your family, your students, do your work, but you also have some time to take care of yourself. Many people publish about this and many people have written about this, but you can't be there for others if you're not there for yourself first. And so with that thought, I wish everybody in E-Town well. And I want to thank everybody who joined me today. Christy, Amber, Brian, and Taya, thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to seeing you all in person sometime soon. Take care and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.